afternoon. I'm Captain Scott Collins. I'm commander of the Sheriff's Hemet Station. The Hemet Station serves the unincorporated community of Nuevo. With me today is Captain John Hill, commander of the Perris Station. And Captain Hill also serves as the Chief of Police for the Perris Police Department. To my far right is Lieutenant Joe Borja from the Sheriff's Central Homicide Unit. And to my left is Riverside County District Attorney Paul Zellerbach. And to his left is Riverside County District Attorney Marion Ashley.
I
said District Attorney. Sorry, Supervisor. And to his left is Deputy District Attorney Bert Strunsky. Today we have some good news. Very early this morning, investigators from the Sheriff's Central Homicide Unit arrested 25-year-old David Rey Contreras for 3 homicides. On February 4th, 2013, at about 5:08 in the afternoon, deputies from the Hemet Sheriff Station responded to a dispatched assault occurring in the 29,000 block of Central Avenue, west of Menifee Road, in the community of Nuevo. When those deputies arrived, they found 25-year-old Consuelo Connie Gonzalez deceased in the road, and she had been stabbed to death. Connie was walking with her mother, and Connie's mother is 51-year-old Maria Gonzalez. Maria had been transported to the hospital, and at the hospital she died of her injuries. Maria had also been stabbed to death. Maria and Connie had been on an early evening walk in the neighborhood. They were attacked by an unprovoked man who ran away after this violent assault. Investigators from the Sheriff's Central Homicide Unit worked this case relentlessly. These investigators linked the double murder to another murder that occurred in the city of Perris on December 29th of 2012. And in that case, in December of 2012, 53-year-old Jose Preza was walking his dog in the area of Orange Street and Evans Road in the city of Perris when he was attacked and stabbed to death by an unknown attacker. Now, the investigators used many techniques. We saturated the area with patrol. We had community meetings. We had an investigative checkpoint to gather as many leads as possible. Sheriff's investigators used witness statements and physical evidence to link David Rey Contreras to the double homicide in Nuevo and the homicide in Perris. Contreras had been among the suspects identified early on in the investigation. Contreras was observed in the area of the double murder on February 11th at about 8:45 in the morning. A concerned citizen called 911 to report a man matching the description of the homicide suspect. He was walking in the area where the murders had just occurred. Contreras was observed and he was detained by a sheriff's canine unit that spotted him walking in the area. He was booked on weapons charges that day, and detectives started looking at him as a strong lead in that homicide investigation. During the course of the investigation, investigators were able to gather enough evidence to ultimately arrest Contreras today. Now, when I'm done talking, District Attorney Zellerbach will discuss the pending charges and prosecution of David Rey Contreras. Supervisor Marion Ashley from the 5th Supervisorial District of Riverside County is going to discuss the community's role, and Lieutenant Joe Borja will be here to answer questions about investigative details or those details that we can release and how this case unfolded. District Attorney Zellerbach.
Good afternoon. Let me first say that having been involved in the criminal justice field in Riverside County for over 35 years as both a prosecutor and a Superior Court judge, these murders were some of the most horrifying that I've ever seen or been involved with. These random, brutal attacks on these victims were senseless, and this individual will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Late yesterday afternoon, after we reviewed the evidence with the Sheriff's Department, my office filed a criminal complaint against Mr. Contreras, charging him with 3 separate counts of first-degree murder. We have also filed an allegation relating to the use of the knife, wherein Mr. Contreras brutally attacked these individuals, 2 of the victims suffering over 20 separate stab wounds. In addition to the murder charges and the allegation relating to the use of the knife, we have filed 2 separate special circumstance allegations, one relating to an allegation that the murders were committed while lying in wait, and the other special circumstance allegations relates to the fact that there were multiple murders committed by this individual. Mr. Strunsky, to my left, will be the prosecutor assigned to prosecute this case to its conclusion, and we hope and expect that ultimately justice will be done for Riverside County and the community. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Supervisor Mary Ashley, the 5th District, and I represent Nuevo, the communities of Nuevo, Lakeview, and the city of Perris, and that's also Nuevo's my native community. Along came a spider, David Contreras, a predator, a vicious serial killer, whose victims, Maria Gonzalez and her daughter Consuelo, and Victor Apreza of Perris. Apparent random victims, the worst of all possible crimes. On behalf of the citizens and residents of Nuevo and Lakeview community and the city of Perris, I want to congratulate the sheriff and the district attorney for the wonderful, unbelievable investigative work they've done to make this arrest. And I think this work is just a sterling performance. We're very, very pleased. The community, all of us now in the Nuevo, Lakeview, Perris, and the surrounding areas, we can now feel safe. This predator is apprehended and will be brought to justice. And that's what our justice system is for, and we're confident that it'll work successfully. Our Riverside County Board of Supervisors offered up to a $100,000 reward for the apprehension and conviction of this evil, brutal killer. I hope that this offer of reward was helpful in making this arrest and ultimate conviction. Thank you. This is a very, very good day for Nuevo, Lakeview, Perris, and Western Riverside County.
Questions?
Was the $100,000 reward helpful? Did it bring in tips that helped in the investigation?
I don't know if the $100,000 reward was helpful. I do know that one lead came in early, but there were several leads that homicide investigators had to work their way through.
We're not sure if anybody will be receiving the reward. Not sure yet.
Well, we don't know. That's up to the investigation of the sheriff and the district attorney will ultimately determine that.
Any relation between the victims and the suspect that we've been able to find?
Good afternoon. My name is Lieutenant Joe Borja. I work for the Riverside County Sheriff's Department, Central Homicide. In respect to that question, there's nothing that connects the victims or the suspects in this case. It's totally random and unprovoked.
Do we think that it may be part of a gang initiation or any reason behind the random killings that we know of?
There's nothing that indicates that this Mr. Contreras was a gang member or anything like that. It just seems random and unprovoked.
By definition, is he a serial killer, or is that you have to have 4, or is it? I don't know the definition of that.
The definition, 3 or more, but I would say that his actions, they account for what I would consider a serial killer. And if not stopped, I believe there would have been more victims in the area.
might add to that point that when Mr. Contreras was contacted earlier this year, he had in his possession a baseball bat and a knife. And he was at that point in time arrested and charged for those violations.
Is he a known criminal? Does he have a criminal record? I haven't looked him up yet, but